All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our second ever Bicky live stream. We are here with Groucho's Deli president, Deric Rosenbaum. Deric, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Great to be with you today, Abhinav.
Great to have you. Thanks for making time for us. So the topic of this one is what is unified commerce? And the thing that really intrigued me as we were texting last week was, you are one of the few operators I know that has very intentionally and meticulously, especially at your size, crafted a tech stack that integrates super well with each other. And you shared with me that it's part of your philosophy of unified commerce. Maybe let's start with, in your words, what is unified commerce?
Absolutely. Again, thanks for having me on. I spent some deep time thinking about actually, what is unified commerce and how do we distill that down into a couple usable sentences without throwing a bunch
Yeah.
of bullshit in it. So, I mean,
I mean, that's key, right?
Yeah.
Because unified commerce itself is like this. It can be this nebulous and big term that people can throw around. And again, like to your point, like we got to cut straight to the heart of it and get to it without the BS. So.
I mean, to me, and I'm going to read this because I spent some time crafting these sentences, and to me, it really defines what it is. And it's the fusion and seamless integration of platforms and tools into a singular, cohesive ecosystem working in cooperative unison to enhance and optimize operations, customer user experience, journeys, to drive top-line revenue with data-driven insights and authentic, personalized engagement, marketing strategies focused on increased retention, frequency, and spend, all while optimizing the brand's digital relevance across all touch points. Right. And it aligns to me with Kendall Ware brought up a new definition of SaaS recently at one of the conventions we're at. And this
Kendall Ware, COO of Walk-Ons. Yep.
Yes, and this perfectly aligns with that. And his definition was solutions advancing scalability and accessibility. Sorry, wrong way around. I would add one more A, and that's accountability. And to me, that's ultimately what this is you're fusing these systems together to build this ecosystem that all talks to itself and is not self-governing. Somebody still has to drive the train, but in essence, that's what it is, in my opinion.
Yeah. And so if I play that back, right, and I try to take it a step further for the folks watching this, it sounds like this sort of like beautiful marriage of your tech stack, your operational execution, and your marketing strategy to enhance the guest experience.
Yeah, it's a Resmar
through that. Yeah, right. And then and through that, of course, all of these things are sort of the foundation because the ultimate goal of enhancing the guest experience is increasing frequency, is increasing retention, and ultimately what really matters, increasing sales, right? Correct. So it's like if you nail this unified this unified approach to technology, your marketing strategy, and your operations, makes the experience better, making the experience better, makes frequency better, making frequency better, drives sales. And that's sort of like the train that we should think about when it comes to unified commerce. Is that a fair way to kind of frame it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And all the while optimizing your data to improve on that continually.
Yeah. And then, so let's take it a step further. And it's like, why does unified commerce matter? Especially in this moment. I think the thing that really piqued my interest about this, there was an article in Restaurant Business Magazine, I think it was about a month and a half ago. And it was talking about unified commerce, not in a pejorative way, not in a condescending way, but it was like the author of the article was like, this is a new term that vendors are throwing around and that operators who went through this sprawl of new tech tools caused by the pandemic and the rapid, speed of digital adoption. Now, when people think about unified commerce, they're like, how do I make all this shit talk to each other and fit together? Or how do I pare back the number of tools that I have and align around the 2 to 3 that work really well together to drive my business forward? I think, and so that was like the unique cultural moment that led me to really be interested in this conversation. What do you think, from your perspective, is driving a push towards unified commerce? Is it really just the explosion of tools that we've seen? Is it changes in the customer experience? Is it changes in the restaurant landscape? How would you sort of, when you chalk up like the contributors to, what is unified commerce, or, the push towards unified commerce, how would you rank those things? How would you understand like what's driving this push?
I mean, that's a hugely subjective question to the brand and to the brand and the brand's objectives. And I mean, I guess what I see is, I think if you fail to somehow adapt some version of this, you're not going to be able to compete in the modern marketplace. And, I'm seeing this massive aggregation of these very tech forward brands that are growing at rapid scale and understanding their guests and understanding the journey and optimizing those journeys and those touch points, continuous improvement. And to me, that's what I see. And I don't see how you can stay relevant in today's digital world without these tools. Ultimately, I think you will be obsolete.
Does digital relevance mean, no, I know that's a very blunt and probably critical way to put it. Does digital relevance mean growth in digital transactions? Are those things synonymous? No. Okay, so what does digital relevance mean now?
Digital relevance is a sum of its parts. So it's, it's operations, it's execution, it's experience, it's reputation management, it's listings management, it's online order user experience. It's all these integrative experiences together collectively make your digital relevance. No one thing contributes to any of it. None of us will ever understand Google's algorithm, but we know that reviews and relevance and recency and frequency, all these things contribute to your relevance. And where do potential customers start their journey looking for a new restaurant? They start with, or they start with Apple, or they start with a marketplace sometimes. So that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, I mean, I think to me, digital relevance is absolutely a sum of its parts. It's no one thing.
Yeah. Do you need or feel like restaurants should push towards 100% digital transactions? And the reason I ask that question is unified commerce becomes a lot easier to track, engage, and nudge guests for that goal of increased frequency and increased sales if you have a higher share of digital transactions.
I mean, that's undisputed. I mean, it's the highest acquisition rate for guest data. It's all the things, right? It's easier inputs. You're taking humans out of the equation. You're eliminating error. Yes. But the ultimate answer to that is no. I think you need to be where your customers are, regardless of channel, whether it's digital, whether it's a native digital, whether it's a marketplace digital, whether it's in the four walls of your restaurant, whether it's a kiosk, whether it's a drive-through. You need to understand your guests and how they want to interact with your brand. And I think it's our job to be there wherever they are. And, food in of itself is inherently social. So our brick and mortar establishments will always be here in some way, shape, or form. If it's all kiosk and all serve yourself beers, I mean, that might be the future. I don't know. But I think we have an obligation to be channel agnostic and provide the seamless, cohesive experience regardless of the channel. And I think unified commerce helps you do that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. And then if you think about, maybe share with the folks watching, to the extent you're comfortable, how has your share of digital transactions changed from 2019 to today? I'll say that's part one. And then part two is, where do you think it's going to go over the next few years? And then I have a part three, but let's start with those two.
So part one, pre-pandemic, I mean, we had native online ordering. We had curbside functionality built. We never used it. We turned it on the day or closed our dining rooms down, and we pivoted and operationalized that. And, it really helped facilitate our growth during COVID. And I mean, it sounds kind of weird, but we were kind of positioned to thrive in that environment. So pre-COVID, our native digital sales were like 6% of our total revenue, and we were doing absolutely very little outside of Easy Cater and any kind of outside channel. Through COVID, we grew that exponentially. We brought in all the big boys, the Ubers, the DoorDashes, the Grubhubs of this world, and those that have now no longer are with us. I mean, today, digital revenue, total collective digital revenue is pushing 40%. That's a combination of native, third-party, and third-party catering. So it's growing exponentially. I was convinced that it was going to die down after we all came back online, but convenience is king, and customers are willing to pay for convenience. So we need to optimize that journey and lean into that. And we are constantly improving those services around digital journeys and like putting in basic things like phone automation. And now we're testing phone AI automation to further enhance those journeys and take some of these manual components out of the equation.
And where do you think it's going to go? So you're at 40% today, maybe project for us the next 3 years, let's call it. Where do you think your digital transactions go? Is it going to become the majority of your business?
I think it will likely exceed 50%. I don't know that it will ever. We're a lunch centric organization, obviously.
Right.
Roughly 70% of our revenue is in the lunch hours. So, business meetings are going to happen. Couples are going to get together. Families are going to go out to eat on Saturdays after soccer games. I think those things are still going to happen. There is a human component to the act of eating out. And I don't know that will go away. So I think it's going to grow, just not at the rate that it has been, unless that's your brand's focus. There are a few brands out there that are pretty much exclusively digital. And so, again, that's up to your brand, your brand's objectives, and where you want to be and where you want to position yourself in this market.
Yeah. Okay. So we're about 4 minutes left here in this stream. Maybe let's get to the payoff. What is the payoff of, I won't say unified commerce, but I would say pursuing a unified commerce strategy? Again, this marrying of your tech stack, your marketing strategy, your operations, the marriage of these things into unified commerce, and like a consistent meeting guests where they are in consistent engagement with the guests. What characterizes a brand from a growth standpoint, maybe, or from an ROI standpoint, that's pursuing this strategy versus someone who's not? How do you think about the payoff, the ROI of, again, like pushing towards unified commerce versus someone who's like, I'm just going to have these channels and I'm going to, make it up as I go along, and maybe not be as intentional around, their tech stack, etc.
I think it allows you to compete at a different level. We understand our guest journey, like from A to B, and within each channel, because the journey is different, right? And so you can continually optimize. You can optimize around PMix. You can optimize around LTO offerings. You can optimize around scheduling. You can optimize around operational efficiencies. All of this brings. Optimization is the key word here. It's streamlining these things and understanding your business and making data-derived decisions based on past actions that could influence future actions. Yeah. And ultimately, I see it as the only way to remain relevant with what I see coming in our industry.
And maybe expand on that. What is it that you see coming?
Consolidation. A big consolidation, not just in operations, but also in tech stacks, in vendor partners out there. I think I called that a few years ago at FS Tech. There's so many people doing the same thing, and that consolidation is happening not just within restaurants, but it's also, there's a million Nashville hot chicken chains out there. There's a lot of people doing a lot of the same things. So how do you compete when we're all fighting for the same market share, the same wallet, right? And so what are you doing to differentiate yourselves? And if you can understand how your customers are engaging with your brand to bring that differentiation, I think that's the key unlock here for me, is understanding how your guests interact with your brand, and how do your habitual loyal guests interact with your brand, and how do you go out and find that lookalike audience? Right.
Okay, so we're approaching 1 minute remaining here. Maybe walk us through, as succinctly as you can, how'd you build your tech stack? How did you pursue unified commerce? What mattered to you when you were picking vendors and piecing this together to enable you to compete at this new level, as you mentioned?
I think it's a crawl, walk, run. You can't do everything at one time. You won't know what's doing what. So I think you need to prioritize, what is first, what is second, what is third, and so forth. And then you need to find vendor partners, true vendor partners, people that want to work together, that understand the value of open and bi-directional APIs, and they're not trying to build this vertical stack and not let anyone else in. I think that's step one. To me, tech stack should be modular, though I see them as a Lego system. If this loyalty provider is no longer, or becomes obsolescent, and there's a new product on the market that's way better, and I should be able to pull this out and plug that in, right? Mm-hmm. So it's about vetting true vendor partnerships and trying not to do it all at once, but initially starting with a roadmap and then just like anything else, you tweak and refine as you go and understand. And, I think a question that you should ask today is how are your vendors, ask your vendors, how are you putting in large language learning models into your platforms? Because the ability to be able to chat with your data, I think, is here. And that is going to be revolutionary. So when you wake up at 2:00 in the morning with this burning question in your head, you can literally go to your computer and be like, da 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 da. That is game changing from where we were 10 years ago. So to me, crawl, walk, run, vet your partners.
Love it. Well, Deric, thank you again for the time. This was it was great catching up with you on unified commerce and scratching the surface a little bit here. But again, to wrap up, for those of you tuning in here, unified commerce, the marriage of your tech stack, the marriage of your marketing strategy, the marriage of execution and superior operations, all of that enhancing the guest experience to drive frequency and to ultimately do the thing that every operator cares about, drive sales. Deric, thanks so much. This was fun. Appreciate you.
15 minutes of my life.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Take care.